morning, President Dr. Hawkins, Executive Committee, Board of Directors, faculties, friends, families, and guests, and graduating class of 2021. Welcome. My name is Isaac Tongo, and it is my great honor and privilege to stand here today. I haven't spoken to this many people before. I don't know if you can tell, I am absolutely petrified. But with your kind patience, we'll make it through the next few minutes together. First, I want to give glory to God for guiding me and giving me the strength to get here today. I want to thank my wife, Newell, and my children for their unconditional love and their support. And thank you to Bellevue University to help with all of us to get here today. Thank you. So it is customary for a student commencement speaker to tell you something about themselves. So let me start off by telling you that I'm an excellent juggler. So honestly, I didn't know much about juggling before I earned my bachelor's degree in leadership, but a professor once told me the key to being a successful juggler is to never let anything hit the ground. Sounds like a simple test, right? To do that, a juggler must constantly keep an eye on whatever it is falling in order to catch it, to secure it, and to send it flying back up in the air. So if I was to ask a show of hands, see how many of you are a juggler, I bet there would be at least a few. But maybe some of you know how to juggle balls or pieces of fruit, or maybe some of you are very skilled and can juggle bowling balls, running chainsaws, flame torches, and so on. So no matter what you can juggle, good for you. Today, however, I want to tell you about a different type of juggling, the type that I've learned during my degree studies, and maybe all of you have learned too. My introduction to juggling began where I was born, a small village in Upper Nile state of South Sudan. As a child, I had a happy and a simple life. Unfortunately, that life was brought to a sudden end when a civil war broke out in South Sudan, forcing many, including my family, to leave our homes to save our lives. When your life's at risk, you learn to juggle anything and everything in order to survive. Like many others, my family and I traveled on foot for weeks in order to seek sanctuary in Western Ethiopia. We lived there for years in a refugee camp with very little. And sometimes it seems like hope was all we had. But as Dale Carnegie once said, most of the important things in the world have been accomplished by people who have kept on trying when there seemed no hope at all. When I was 12 years old, my family and I were very fortunate to be given the opportunity, the permanent refugees in the United States of America. Grateful to be safe from the almost certain death that staying in South Sudan meant. When I became an adult, I knew I wanted to get back to the United States. So I joined the Army to be a part of protecting freedom and safety that allows all of us to be here today. Believe it or not, I am happy to be in the Army. I am proud to say that I am a sergeant in the Army. There's an old saying, though the officers may tell the Army when and where to move, but it's the sergeants that make it happen. So no offense to any officers out there. In the all television commercials, the U.S. Army said that it did more before 9 a.m. than most people do all day. But what they don't tell you is that the Army day doesn't end at 9 a.m. Rather, it means that although your day began 5 hours earlier, things are just getting started. And when 5 p.m. rolls around, it doesn't mean the end of the workday either. But I'm sure all of you can identify that with your jobs too. Despite already being all that I could be in the Army, I decided to add one more thing to what I was already juggling. At the time, my life in the Army was fairly stable at Fort Carson in the beautiful Colorado. So I thought it was the perfect time to complete my degree. Unfortunately, the Army read my mind. Shortly after I started my second class of cohort, I received the order to quickly move to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And no sooner have I reached Kentucky, I received order to immediately deploy to Germany. And deployments are part of a military service, and I've already deployed once before, and that time was to Iraq, where I spent 9 months. And so my orders were in a complete shock. However, It really wasn't the most ideal time for me to deploy, but that's not something Army likes to hear. So I tried to stay optimistic. I thought that once I got to Germany and settled in a routine, things would settle down a bit and I could go back to juggling family, work, and school, just like all of you. But then along came another ball to juggle, one that everyone around the world faced, and that's COVID. Upon arriving in Germany, I spent the first 14 days in quarantine. Yet, despite the military's best efforts, there was a huge outbreak of COVID on base soon thereafter. Many were ill with virus. Everyone else had to endure a quarantine every time there was a possibility that they were being exposed to the virus. As a result, everyone was shorthanded. And eventually, the orders were the only essential personnel to report to work, to report for duty each day. And for better or for worse, a few others and I were considered essential. Being essential just means having to do more with less. And in the Army, it means keeping everything operational and mission capable no matter what. So work took more of my time, which meant there was less and less time for my schoolwork. That was yet another ball to juggle. But my professor helped me tremendously with the assignments deadline so I could stay enrolled. After 5 months in Germany, we deployed back home. It was good to be back home with family, as well as being able to devote more time to my studies, or so I thought. But as you might have guessed, the Army had other plans. Almost immediately after returning home, the Army decided to enroll me in some of the most challenging classroom and field-based leadership trainings I have ever had the privilege to undertake. But that privilege also meant more juggling. I was becoming increasingly nervous that I might drop something. To ease the strain, quitting the school seemed like the best option for me. But it also seemed like I would be failing myself. Fortunately, my professor would not let me fail myself. Again, he helped me with the assignment deadline, and I just kept juggling. My fellow students, now that you understand what kind of juggler I am, I ask you to raise your hand if, during your studies, you learned how to juggle. So raise your hand if you learned you were a juggler as a student. And that's terrific. I commend all of you. We can all be proud of ourselves. Our juggling skills helped us make it here today. Thomas Rhett once wrote a song called Be a Light. In part of the lyrics, he says, in a world full of hate, be a light. Don't hide in the dark. You were born to shine. In a place that needs to change, make a difference. So Bellevue University class of 2021, let's keep juggling. Let's go make a difference. Congratulations, everyone, and thank you.